this afternoon. Right now we have Dan Severn. He is the MMA legend, also professional wrestling. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Well, Fitz, thank you for having me on.
It's my pleasure, and we really wanted to have you on for a while, but to me this is the perfect timing with the event you have coming to kind of our hometown here in Mentor, Ohio. What can fans expect to see and meet when they come out at the Happy Moose Bar and Grill this Saturday in Mentor from 5 to 7?
Well, again, I actually look forward to going to the place just because of the name, the name alone. So it's when I hear about the name of a place called the Happy Moose, some old comedies kind of come to my mind, and I'm thinking, I wonder if it will even be anywhere as close to any of this kind of comic type of thing there. But I'll say, in a normal type situation, I travel with a couple of the most recognizable belts in the world. I put them on display so that people can see some of the bling bling from the professional world and from the mixed martial arts world, and the fact that you're there and you'll interact with the folks. They ask questions, they'll get a nice, thorough answer, probably with some type of a story that goes with it of experience. So I just think it's a chance to get to know the athlete, other than just the competitor that you see on television. You get a chance to actually see the competitor in a more relaxed type of setting.
It definitely sounds like a good time for everyone who's going to make that trip out to Mentor, Ohio. And again, fans, that is the Happy Moose Bar and Grill this Saturday from 5 to 7. Check that out. Dan, one of the cool things you've been doing recently the last couple of years, another one of the all-time greats, Don Frye, you guys have partnered up for the Dan and Don's Toxic Masculinity podcast. What can fans expect to hear when they tune into that?
Well, they may have to have their little ears, may not have to allow some of the kiddies may not be in the room, because the title, Toxic Masculinity, kind of says it all. We're probably not everyone's cup of tea. We're more of an acquired taste, but any red-blooded American loves us. Especially if they eat meat and they still believe in America and working hard and putting America first.
Absolutely love that message. That's how we were built. Fans, I'm going to take a little bit behind the scenes here very, very quickly. I first met the champ back in 2018 at the Arnold back on, the first weekend, as always, of March in 2018 at the Arnold. And, Mr. Severn here was gracious with his time, and I'll never forget it. So just a really good guy. You're really going to love that podcast. We have a few questions for you this afternoon, and I wanted to throw a few at you because I just think that fans can learn a lot about you and really what the positive spirit and that hard-working spirit could do for them. So had a couple questions for you, and really the first one, these are things we've talked about in the past when we met, but I want the fans to be able to hear these answers as well. Coming into coming into UFC 4, you were kind of flying blind, not much training going into that for that particular MMA style of sport, but how much did UFC 4 help you come back and completely dominate in UFC 5 to win it all against guys like Joe Charles, Oleg Tatarov, and Dave Beneteau in UFC 5? So basically, how did UFC 4 help you win UFC 5?
Well, it did. I mean, the blunt part of it was that I did not know that the UFC even existed until, I think, UFC number 3. Again, to educate the audience there, because pay-per-views were not as prevalent back then. We're talking about that 1994 time period, as they are today. Back in that 1994 time period, in order for you to watch a pay-per-view, you actually had to go to a movie theater in a major metropolitan city. But that's where, again, America is, I'm going to dish on America in the school system. We're horrible about understanding our history as to where we came from and where we're headed. But it's if you understand your history, you'll be a lot more educated than we could spend probably the next couple hours, going after the school system of the poor job that they're doing, educating people. But the reality is, I didn't know that this thing existed until basically I'm in it. So when I know that I like the last second replacement, I only trained for 5 days, and I trained over in Lime, Ohio, with Al Snow, the professional wrestling trainer, Al Snow, inside of a professional wrestling ring. I had already started my professional training as of 1992 Olympics. So again, this is all in 1994. There's the closest thing I could find to a cage. It had a confined area. Again, back then, there was only one company that had a cage, and that was the UFC. Fast forward to today, and you've got cages all over the place. I mean, if it's not a full cage, there'll be a section of a cage, and you have all these guys saying, "Hey, we teach MMA, we teach UFC," and I'm thinking, I watch these people, and I'm thinking, you can't even spell MMA, you can't even spell UFC, and yet you're out there trying to teach people. It just kind of boggles my mind. So I say, kind of make a long story here, but the reality is, I went out there as a pure amateur wrestler. I did not learn a single strike. I did not practice a single strike. I did not practice any judo, jiu-jitsu, or things of that nature. So literally when I arrived there, they had a couple gals that were filling out the forms there for you, your name, your age, your weight, all this kind of stuff, because it didn't matter what you weighed. But because during that NHB, no holds barred time. But the gal asked me this question, like, so what is your fighting style? I'd never been asked a question like this, because I'm thinking, I don't have a fighting style. I just pause for a second, and I'm like going, I'm an American wrestler. Well, she had never heard of that response. She always heard like boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, karate, capoeira, whatever. She saw these different martial arts type of terms, and she just kind of paused, and she looks to her left and right, and then she kind of leans on it. She goes, what exactly is that? So I kind of like mimicked her. I just kind of, paused. I looked left, I looked right. I kind of leaned on in, and I go, you might want to watch. I'm kind of making this up as I go. And she started laughing, thinking that she was like on Candid Camera or something like that. And I'm like going, it's the truth. And trained for 5 days, and here I am.
You know, the thing about it, too, you mentioned his name. One of our all-time favorite guests on the show with Keon Sports, Al Snow. Just one of the more intelligent wrestlers and just all-around skilled in many different forms, and just, again, very, very intelligent. So, I have to believe that helped, as you said, getting started in something so different, right? And at the time, people really didn't know how to get a hold of it, how to even watch it. So I think it's fascinating that you made that point. I thank you for doing that. I have 2 kids in the school system. I have a 3rd grader and a 1st grader. And I agree with you on that point as well, that things are so drastically different than when I went to school, many years ago. So I'm glad you brought that up. I wanted to mention this too, because I think this is important.
I don't know if you know this about me, but I actually have a teaching degree from Arizona State.
Absolutely, yeah. I've been studying it for years.
And I basically, I have did a lot of. I've been coaching. I coached at both Arizona State and I coached at Michigan State. So I've actually used my degree, but my degree is actually in industrial arts, and that's actually something that's kind of going away in the United States. Is the trades. There's a lot of kids that are in school and they think they have to go to college, and no, they should actually take a year or 2 off, go get a job, realize what the real work market is all about, and then when they finally do go to college, they really will apply themselves differently. Unless they were to go out and then maybe go into the military for a couple of years, so then you can only go to college on the GI Bill, which is one of the options that I was looking about doing for myself. But it would mature a lot of the young people today, because what I see coming out of schools is not a very mature person.
I couldn't agree more. You just hit it on the head. I mean, if I could go back and do it differently at 18, I would have went right into HVAC school or carpentry or something with the trades in a heartbeat. I couldn't agree more. The other thing I've also noticed is, like you said, the lack of maturity, but really, quite frankly, I'm just going to say it bluntly, is the lack of respect from young people nowadays, which just boggles my mind. Have you seen that? It just, to me, it's almost like they forgot how to communicate with the overabundance of social media and all the crap that's out there. I can't get over the lack of respect that I've seen.
Well, the lack of respect, but then also for the last couple of years of this bogus lockdown that has taken place as well. So that has really nipped a lot of their social being. But the reality is parents are not parenting though too.
No.
That's a lost art. I don't see. I run a training facility. Again, this was all prior to COVID, stuff like that. At my training facility, I used to run a youth MMA class, but it was not actual mixed martial arts. Yeah, it basically I ran just a martial arts class that I did for the kids, and it was in all kinds of physicality. And so, I mean, they're doing part of gymnastics, so they're doing forward rolls, backward rolls, cartwheels, left side, right side. They're doing piggybacks, they're doing wheelbarrows, they're doing solo type of things, but then they're learning to work with a partner. I mean, I had all kinds of stuff. So where, fast forward to today, Vince, most kids cannot do my warm-up. That's how their physical ability has digressed. I'm going on 65 years of age. Well, again, it's sad what I encounter, and the fact that these kids. I mean, I'll do something just as an icebreaker of standing on your head. Most kids have never even stood on their head, and then I show them. It's like the first time ever. I mean, moms and dads are cell phone picturing left and right, texting the spread word. I'm thinking, Pete, I do that even with my adult classes, but I do that more as an icebreaker for the adults because I think a lot differently than how most people think.
Well, all I can say is I agree with you 110%. It's something I've seen as a youth coach, somebody who covers a lot of high school sports, and it's just massive. But before we get too far off track, because again, I could talk with you about that kind of stuff all night long. Because quite frankly, I agree with every single thing you just said. I couldn't agree more if I tried. But kind of staring things back to the UFC here, when you fought guys like Paul Varelans and Tank Abbott, these are guys that think they're just going to bully somebody around, outpower them, outpunch them. But again, you use that American wrestling style to defeat both those guys. Why was it so effective when you're going up against a quote-unquote bully?
Well, again, no. I mean, Paul Varelans was not a bully, but Paul Varelans was a massive human being. When you look at Paul Varelans, I think was 6'10", and weighed, I think at that time probably 340 pounds, something of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
Now Tank Abbott, he was a pure bully. I mean, he downright evil. I mean, again, when I watched him his very first match ever, he basically knocked out like a 400-pound sumo with one punch. And as that guy laid down there defenseless, his body's involuntarily going into these convulsions, Tank Abbott had the audacity to strike this fallen person. And when I saw that happen, I mean, literally, I probably stood right up in my chair, and I'm like, oh, you son of a bitch, you. I can't believe what you just did. I go, I can only hope that I get you one day. Because evil will have begotten a greater evil. I can turn on things that you don't even know. And he's probably the one person that I probably treated the absolute worst ever in a match for what I did. I think some guy counted up, he goes, Severn, you hit Tank Abbott with 276 elbow strikes alone. And that's when they allowed 12 to 6 elbow shots. That's an illegal move today.
Yeah, 12 to 6. A fascinating thing there for everybody at home. That's the only loss on John Bones Jones' career. A lot of people talk about John Bones Jones. He lost by disqualification. He was beating Matt Hamill so badly, but he used a 12-6 and got disqualified. Just a little bit of a tidbit for all you out there if you ever want to win a bet at a bar. One of the guys too, one of your most epic rivalries, as they say, obviously was Ken Shamrock. We've had Ken Shamrock on the show talking about different things such as steroid use. When you fought him twice in the UFC, did you kind of feel like Ken might have been one of those guys who was a little bit more chemically enhanced?
Vince, come on now, a little bit. I mean, oh, come on now. It's a blind man could have saw through this one. It's that's a lot of times people try to put me in the same category with Ken. I go, no. I said, I don't even want to be mentioned in the same breath. We are two vastly different people.
Extremely.
I am lifetime chemical free. Now, say that in a professional wrestling locker room. That's hard. That's hard to come by. Now, throw that between professional wrestling and the MMA world. How many of these guys that are getting hit with their whatever, their PRPs and things of that nature that they're getting into their systems. I mean, the fact that I only did 2 training camps in a 20-year career, and then we look at there's only 4 men in the world that have over 100 cage fights. I'm one of 4 of them. And there's only three men in the world that have over 100 victories. I'm one of those 3. But the ironic part is I have faced the other 3. I have defeated the other 3. And the closest one to my age is 12 years my junior. The closest one. And then, like I said, knowing that I only did 2 training camps during that whole time, I'm basically telling you that someone roughly the age of your father beat you and didn't even take the time out to train for you.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. And as a fan back in the day, you could tell which guys were on the gas and which guys were completely clean. And I think that's also what made you so likable, because you were like everybody's tough uncle. You know what I mean? You were that guy that wrestled in high school, wrestled in college. You knew no one was going to screw with, and you knew he was doing everything the right way.
Yeah, no, again, I think there's a great compliment there. I appreciate that. No, I always tell people, I'm a nice guy. And that's what the other thing that people will kind of walk with, it, because I will engage people into a good conversation, and it just, I used my brain out there, because I always tell people that I was not a fighter. I've never been in a true fight in my life, but I've been a competitor. So I'm always calculating. What are these rules? Okay, I'm walking to something that has no rules. No time limit. The only two basic rules I had was no biting, no eye gouging, but even then, those were not grounds for disqualification. You might get your hand slapped and say, don't do that again, and give him his eyeball back, But I say that kind of kiddingly, but I'm not kidding, because you mentioned one of the name Paul Varlins did get irate a couple times.
Yeah.
Had problems with his eye, and eventually lost eyesight in that eye. So even then, it's like, and was his opponent ever disqualified or received any kind of a penalty? No. So it was a whole different ball game, and during the no holds barred, as it is today, where they just do. It's known as mixed martial arts, and there's either 47 or 49 rules today. And some of the rules they even have today are still absolutely asinine.
Yeah. Which one do you feel is probably the most ridiculous?
Okay, 12-6. And why I'm saying it right now is because if you took me down and you raised your hand up, you are not allowed to do 12-6, but they refer to 12-6 as to reach into the sky and a downward motion. Yet, I will allow you to take me down. I will pull guard. And again, I always tell I always have, because I'll demonstrate this, because I'll say, okay, I want you two guys go out there. Okay, you take the other man down and then freeze. Okay, and then so take down the curve. They all pull guard and the man freeze. And I go, okay, the man inside the guard, what is your next move? And he looks up, and I said, so what I'm going to do is, Vince, I allow you to take me down. As you take me down, you got your head down, and I will put just one of my hands behind my head, left or right, doesn't matter, or both. And then as you start to look up, now I ratchet down with that 12-6 elbow strike. But it's not considered 12-6. Even though it's the exact same movement, it's not considered 12-6. Because it didn't come from the ceiling to the ground, and yet I'm like, how dumb are you that it's still a 12-6 movement? But I tell people all the time, do sidewall to sidewall, and for whatever reason, some dumbasses come up with that's okay, but I go, to me, that's still 12-6, but we live in a country where normal and or common sense is not common at all.
Nope. And neither is accountability.
Is running rampant. Oh yeah, accountability. There should be people that should be imprisoned and should just be put out of their misery.
They make it, again, if I can speak bluntly before I get to my final question here, they make it so easy for people not to have any kind of accountability. And over the last 3 years since COVID, was even more ridiculous. People not having to pay their bills back, their student loans back, not having to pay crap. Meanwhile, other people, like myself, working 2 jobs, owning a small company here with Keon Sports, working a full-time job on top of that, and doing everything to raise my kids the right way, when you have the rest of society saying, nope, take the free pass.
Yeah, well, again, you got to look at, what was it, just announced within the last couple of days that Walmart is pulling out 3 or 4 of their stores somewhere in the Chicago, Illinois area because of all the smash and grab and robbery that's taking place. And they show video clips of what the store looks like. It looked like some worn, torn village.
And again,
hardly any food on the shelves, and then what was it left there was either smashed or vandalized somehow. And I'm like, why would you run a store like that? To me, it's like going, I'd have armed guards. I'd be only allowing so many people inside my building. I mean, it's to me, it's like you still own your own property. Protect your property. That's still something they haven't taken away from you. You want to come, it's fucking. No. We're going to go off the other.
No, you're good.
Our leadership is allowing our front door wide open to an invasion right now, but that's a whole different topic.
Oh, it's ridiculous. But I'll make this one last point before I get to my final question, and I want to make this crystal clear for everybody listening at home. For Keon Sports to exist, okay, we have over 4 million followers a year. 4 million people click and listen to our content or read our content. It's an incredible thing. We're blessed to have it. We're very blessed, and I want to make sure that's crystal clear before I make this point. My point is this. We have many sponsors. Like any media company out there, you need sponsors. You need to be able to pay your employees and yourself, okay? So going back to what would have been May of 2020, we had 2 sponsors completely have to go out of business because their stores were rioted. In the BLM riot, the Black Lives Matter riots, everything that went down, they got completely destroyed and had to go out of business. 2 of our smaller companies that were sponsors of ours, these were honest, hardworking human beings that saw their storefronts completely destroyed, shattered. Like he said, like Dan just said, glasses getting broken, getting robbed and looted. And it kills the American spirit and the American way. And it was stuff like that. These idiots don't realize how many other people they're hurting. Not only did they hurt those two companies, they hurt me. Those are sponsors. Those are dollars out of my pocket, out of my company's pocket, because somebody decided to riot.
Yep, and you just got to look at the customer clientele that they were serving. I mean, they're part of that community. It's now where do people go? So it's there's a lot of people just don't understand the domino effect because no one, I should say, very few people are being punished for what they're doing wrong. When you can allow an offender, like a turnstile, walk in and then walk right back on out, you're not doing your job. And again, that's law enforcement. Law enforcement hands are being tied more and more of what they can do and what they can't do.
Yep.
Everyone's all worried about this, they're worried about that, and cameras are everywhere. I always tell people, you don't have to be worried as long as you're doing the right thing. You don't have to be worried about it. Just do the right thing. Right. I don't care how many cameras are. Do the right thing.
It's sad. It's so sad. It's so sad because then you have the cameras in the classrooms and these kids. I mean, my God, it's just, yeah. I mean, it's over the top. Like again, it goes back to disrespect, the way they're being raised. There's so many things there. But the final question I have for you is actually all about respect. It's the ultimate respect question, quite frankly. I'm a huge wrestling fan. That's how I actually got into following MMA, because MMA was the closest thing to wrestling at the time that was actually 100% legitimate and not scripted, so it was great. Obviously,
we're speaking about amateur wrestling, folk style wrestling.
Correct. So,
okay, just want to make certain. Okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, but one of the guys who was able to cross both worlds and do it phenomenally well was a guy by the name of Stu Hart. Now, clearly, Stu Hart had Owen and Brett. He had, I think, I want to say 7 sons and 5 daughters. Bret Hart's my all-time favorite wrestler, on and on and on. I have a Bret Hart hoodie on as we speak, actually, as I look down and see the Hitman symbol. But one of the coolest things, one of the coolest stories you ever told me was when you met Stu Hart. Could you just kind of talk about the level of respect? You know, I know Stu gave you the T-shirt, and just a really cool moment, you know, as you went out to the Hart house.
I mean, what brought me to the Hart residence there in the first place was a match between Owen Hart and with Ken Shamrock. So they were going to do the dungeon match. The Stu Hart had a legendary training facility in his home, the basement, but for whatever reason it was called the dungeon. But it was a padded mat, flooring, some padded walls. And it's basically just think of someone's, maybe a little bit oversized, that basement that's all padded up for wrestling. And that's where he taught his sons and daughters about the sport of wrestling. But then, I'll just say the folklore was that he would sometimes take some people down there and stretch them a little bit. The word stretch means that kind of, maybe enjoyed putting them in a little bit of pain to show them that wrestling there's legit aspects to wrestling there as well. But he actually taught them how to wrestle, and that's what I always tell people, that the marquee says professional wrestling. Let's do at least a little bit of wrestling. Typically what you see in most professional wrestling, you see a bunch of talkers, a bunch of posers where they're out there like flex, because they're all gassed up on steroids, so they're flexing and they're talking braggadociously, but you don't see very much actual wrestling taking place.
Would you have ever wrestled Brock Lesnar if you had the chance in a, like you said, either Greco-Roman or folk style, freestyle wrestling? A guy like Lesnar, like, I mean, obviously there was that age difference, but you seem like the kind of guy who would take on that challenge no problem.
Well, I mean, you bring up, and there's been a lot of different questions about that of him and I, because of the Beast acronym and things of that nature. And again, I don't know who came up with the name for him, or if he came up with it for himself. But I would say that the person who gave me my cage name or ring name was NFL Hall of Famer himself, Jim Brown. So he was one of the play-by-play color commentators for the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and he's the guy that gave me my ring name because of what he knows about my demeanor and stuff like that, of how he didn't even realize I was a fighter. Well, he thought I was somebody's agent, because when he first met me, I was wearing a sports jacket, a tie, wearing my glasses, and everyone thought I was somebody's agent. And Al Snow was wearing more or less the muscle guard and stuff like that. They all thought that he was the fighter, until they said all the fighters report up to the head table, and all of a sudden Al's out in the crowd, and I'm up at the head table. So
excellent stuff.
Again, I could go. I'm trying to keep it kind of a scale now, because I know you're a little bit crunch on some time right there. But No, I just don't know if people understand that. I'm a big believer in using your mind more than your body, and that's why you can still have an intelligent conversation with me at this juncture of my life. I mean, you got to realize I'm turning 65 here soon. I'm probably one of the oldest guys ever that's probably still alive that has done this sport. And you can have an intelligent conversation with me because there's a number of athletes that they are suffering from CTE, dementia, Alzheimer's. They're on different forms of disability because they're not able to hold down proper employment because of their issues, mental issues or health issues or whatever else have you.
Well, guys, if you want to have an intelligent conversation with a legend in not only the MMA industry, WWE, NWA, just an amazing, amazing career, head on out. Again, I'll say it one last time here. The Happy Moose Bar and Grill this Saturday in Mentor from 5 to 7. A lot of you guys who are listening to this show right now probably live anywhere within 10 to at maybe the most 35 minutes from Mentor, Ohio. It's in a lot of our backyard. So again, the Happy Moose and Bar Grill this Saturday. Come on out 5 to 7. Mr. Severn, we want to thank you again.
I'll jump on that note right there, just to simply say, Vince. I mean, yeah, come on out and ask questions. I would tell people that I like when people come and ask questions, and that because I will give you a very thorough answer. Then we'll probably go with a story that actually proves my point. I really pride myself in the fact of the sport of amateur wrestling. It was my ticket to pay for my education, to travel the entire the entire United States, and to travel to every country that has ever had a wrestling program, and some countries that don't exist anymore. I've been around a long time. I started off my career in 7th grade, 1969. So we look at the fact that I competed in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010, 2020 plus. I still do professional matches. I'm not 70 years old, not yet, but the reality is I've competed in 7 different decades here right now. That is incredible in itself. But then when you look at the level of success that I have had in each of those areas, I always tell people, know your history. Educate yourself. The brain is the greatest tool you'll ever have. Use it, America. Use it, please.
Man, is that right? Holy cow. Yeah, I definitely could talk to you all night long, so we're going to have to maybe do this again one day. Excellent conversation. Want to wish you the best of luck, and we'll see you Saturday night.
Sounds good. Look forward to it, Vince.
Thank you, sir. God bless you.
Yeah, bye.
So Dan Severn there, phenomenal is all I could say. My God. I agreed with everything he said. Everything he said was 100% on the money. For everybody listening to Keon Sports, this is the Wrestling with Legends podcast. Have a good night.